Hello and welcome to this week's live stream. I'm your host, Mod Aiza, and I'm joined by the wonderful Mod Arcane and Mod Kieran. Hello to you both.
Hello, hello.
How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. This has been my first stream in quite a long time. I'm now no longer in Sweden, stranded because of the pandemic. There's no boxes in the background. I finally got my own place, unpacked all of my nerd stuff. Finally feel good.
Yeah.
This is the first time you've been on since you got back. It must have been a while then. Is that an empty picture frame or a mirror?
It is in fact a mirror. Like you can see my hand clearly just about.
I was going to take that one, Kieran. Thanks, man. I was going to steal Spear's little joke that was made in behind the scenes. Then never mind.
What? Spear made that joke already? Because I wasn't there for that.
Oh, damn. Well,
I'm doing good, mate. I'm doing good. Cheers. Thanks for asking. How are you?
Yeah. I'm okay. I won't lie. I'm pretty exhausted, but doing good. Other than that, it's been a rough few weeks, honestly, since coming back. There's been so much going on, so much to get up to speed with, but also wanting to just do the best job possible, and yeah, just a lot of work, really. But I guess on that point, what have you guys been up to for the past week? I'll start off. I mean, the last week I've been working on combat achievements. Now we're doing a stream about combat achievements, but it's essentially been like writing the blog, taking feedback, changing the blog, taking feedback, and now the stream. What about yourself?
Sounds like that scene from a Little Bit, like sing the theme
tune, write the theme tune, star in it.
Yeah, I mean, you've been handling the CM aspects of the Combat Achievements project. I've been doing a lot of the dev work on the CM project, as well as obviously reading all the feedback and liaising with you. So,
yeah, it's been a lot of discussing some of the feedback. I mean, obviously the big hot topic has been instancing for God Wars, so it's something we've been talking quite a lot about today. I've also been involved in quite a few interviews for potential new recruits for the old school team, so exciting.
Ooh, very exciting. It does sound that way. Oh, one sec, apparently I'm losing my voice. Wouldn't be a great host if I couldn't speak, would I? All right, cool. There's a little bit of insight into the week. Before we get into the questions, which for those of you that aren't aware in the chat, this is going to be pretty focused around combat achievements, given the fact that we would like to be in a position to potentially poll it tomorrow. So that being said, ! Leagues in the chat. Leagues is live. It's definitely not too late for you to start your Trailblazer journey today. So use ! Leagues to find out more. And yeah, good luck on your adventure. ! CA. Obviously, we've been listening to your feedback. We recently did release an updated version of the blog for combat achievements. So if you haven't read that already, ! CA, follow the link and go and read the new news post. There's a lot of like proposed changes, as well as just like the general awards and stuff. So that's in there. ! Twisted, the first part in the Twisted Tale series, Getting Ahead, is now live. Defeat the beast that keeps taking Gordon and Mary's livestock in the Kevos lowlands. I'm sure you'll not run into any complications. Use ! Twisted to find out more. Thanks for that. I guess this is Mod Impact writing up some nice little things here for me. Mod Sani, sorry. I said Impact. I just got Impact in my head thinking. ! Merge. The last announcement for you. Black Friday is only around the corner, but that doesn't mean you can't start early. Treat yourself by using ! Merge, and if you spend over £30 or $50 in the store, you'll receive a free black variant of the AGS while stocks last. And as always, if you do have any questions that you want to ask myself or the team, then please add OldSchoolRS in the chat.
Hell yeah. Speaking of Black Friday, happy Thanksgiving to all the Americans watching, particularly.
I said the same. Happy Thanksgiving. All right, let's jump into some questions then. Now, before I do the questions, there's just one thing that I want to say, and I haven't told anyone about this yet, so I'm just going to butt it in while I have the opportunity. Guys, I just want to, well, everyone that has been involved in feedback, thank you so much for all of the really kind of like constructive criticism and the very useful discussion that we've been able to have. However, I do just want to point out that of all the things that I want to be doing when it's in the evening after a long day of work and I'm going through feedback, is reading messages telling me to go kill myself because you don't like a change that's been made. So please, you may think that it's funny, you might think that it doesn't mean anything, but no one wants to have to deal with that, so please don't DM me stupid stuff like that. Don't DM anyone stupid stuff like that, regardless of what's going on. We're just trying to do a good job for you guys and do what's best. Like, it's just not on. I mean, really? And now that I've got out of the way, because I really did think like it was important to just address, let's get into some questions. All right. First one comes in from Smurf Muffins. It's a long one. It's directed towards me. I might not be the one answering it though. Hey Aiza, not sure if it's too late for more suggestions, but one that I think people would like is being able to use the crystals from Prifddinas that recolor the crown in order to recolor the blade of Saildor or the crystal armor, maybe even the tools. This could potentially be a master tier reward and would also help fix people saying that the red blade looks bad.
Yeah, I mean, colors are always a very subjective thing, right? And if you don't like red, the fact that you're forced to have this really red blade,
True.
might be happy with it. And things like this are a perfect example of content that recolors can potentially come from. In the end of the day, there's a lot of recolors we can do. Maybe this is one that we should have done, but I think currently the recolors are going to be going ahead with the ones already proposed. But for sure, I would like the potential of some more recolors for the Blade of Saildor in the future. It'd be really cool.
Awesome. Thank you. There is another question from Smurf Muffins as well that asks, could Ironmen/women be given separate god... Oh, okay, well, do you know what? This is just a big question in itself, so we may as well just get it out of the way, right?
Let's start talking about it.
Can Ironmen/women be given separate God Wars dungeon rooms to mains, like how we did with Court?
So, let's start from the top, right? There's been a lot of feedback on, not necessarily this question, but on instances for God Wars from combat achievements. There are a lot of people with different views on it. There are Ironmen, particularly, who find it very hard to get an empty world at God Wars. Mainly bandos. It's busy for everybody, but Ironmen have the problem that when they do get a world, they're a free world for a main, and that's the view that everyone takes. You're a regular account, you're stuck trying to find a world. You're going to be like, well, it's a bit mean, but I want the world, don't I? So you crash the Ironman. And it's to the point that a lot of Ironmen will spend, set their alarm for 2 a.m. and play bandos at 2 a.m. So there's that. So what we wanted to do with this is offer probably a fair way to get instances for God Wars. There are potential concerns about economy, right? If we just give instances to everybody, suddenly everyone can get bandos ordered all the time. Inherently, there's going to be more people doing bandos, potentially substantially more. So give it some requirements, which is what was offered with combat achievements. Hard tier achievements to get access to it, and a cost. So it was fairly high. I mean, I think rightfully so to some degree, as particularly a lot of Irons thought the price was too high for good reasons, right? I think a lot of Ironmen feel it shouldn't be on them to have to solve a problem, and same for players to have to solve a bunch of content, beat a bunch of content to solve a problem that really isn't theirs to solve. It's just the fact we haven't offered enough worlds potentially. So I see where the feedback comes from. And then there's other issues with, like, if you want to get the hard tier, you've got to beat the wilderness bosses. Maybe that's fair. It's hardcore Iron Man, Ultimate Iron Man. You're going to have some limitations. We also offer the Death's Coffer, which I think is a really good compromise as well, which lets you better convert valuable items into value for the instances. But really, there's still a lot of strong feedback about instances, and that hard tier is arguably harsh, that the cost is still too high. And there's a lot of players who feel that we shouldn't lower the price because it's fair. You're going to get access to free bandos whenever you want. Ultimately, we're trying to strike a balance between two opposing view sets, really. Mm-hmm. So what we are thinking is that, as this question suggests, that we add separate God Wars rooms for Iron Man. And so I'm very interested in in what you all think of that. It's commonly suggested as a way to do this, rather than giving all Ironmen instances, but just simply give them separate boss rooms. And I could carry on talking, but I'm very interested to see the response straight away for what people think. And I don't know if there's anything you want to add to that, Arcane or Aiza specifically.
Yeah, I'd like to mention as well that it's not going to be only Ironmen that are interested in instances as a concept for God Wars going forward. A lot of these challenges in the combat achievements are going to require you to do solo God Wars of all degrees. So Ironmen and mains alike are going to really suffer with getting crashed and things like that. So it's not going to be just a purely Ironman problem going forward. And I think the instances do solve the issue for Ironmen as well as mains. But it is possible we need to just go a bit further and potentially give them their own separate worlds similar to Corp, but also provide private instancing for when you really don't want to get crashed or anything like that.
Yeah, so instances are still going to be a thing. But with this change, we feel we can very much leave it as the current offering, where instances are locked behind a hard tier and have their high costs as they are right now. So I think you offer both. One's restricted to players who've smashed through the difficulties, which is hopefully now acceptable that it's got this cost. Ironmen can still solve their big problem of not being able to play God Wars. We're pretty happy that this is probably the best solution, but of course we're a little cautious with it. It is arguably a big change. So
yeah, all I was really going to add was what you guys said there, was that, yeah, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Arcane and Kieran, but the way that it would work is that it would essentially be like almost as if Ironmen were on their own Ironmen world. So you could go to the Bando's, go to like General Grador's room, for example, as an Ironman, and you could go into that room without going into the instance. There could well still be someone else in there, but there'd be another Ironman. So you'd still have to like look around for empty worlds, but you'd be competing against only other Ironmen as opposed to Ironmen and mains. And then obviously with combat achievements would be able to offer the private instance as they are now, with the cost associated to them that reduces as you progress through.
Yeah, exactly. So to find an empty world, Ironmen will have to click the peak options, and it'll tell you how many people are in. Well, it'll be one person potentially in the Ironmen room. Actually, no, it wouldn't. You could have more than one, because you could technically still crash another Ironman. So up to you if you want to crash another Iron, but you really could do it. And we're talking also about maybe we could have a visual identifier as well, potentially, so that you don't have to click the peak option and make hopping a bit easier. But we'll have to work out the best way to do that. So I think right now, maybe Aiza, you could add more to this. We're planning to update the blog tomorrow with details around this, and I think the plan's still to pull it tomorrow.
Yeah, so because in all honesty, the main thing from all of the feedback that we've had, there's been very little discussion regarding the other rewards. And we would take that as a really good sign that you guys are just like okay with them, or it's just a case of that the God Wars dungeon stuff has completely consumed the conversation. So it's really difficult for us to kind of like gauge where things are at outside of God Wars dungeon instancing until we've solved that issue. So yeah, the plan would essentially be to look at essentially addressing the whole instancing part with tomorrow's iteration of the blog, and then still go ahead with the poll in game, and then basically use that as a good indicator as to whether or not things are what you'd expect them to be in terms of the other rewards, because we obviously have the opportunity to revisit, repoll if needs be, but we really want to try and get the whole God Wars dungeon instance thing sorted as soon as possible, and feel like that's going to be the best course of action. So yeah, the current plan would be to issue a revised blog tomorrow, and then for the end of tomorrow basically put the poll live, so that we've got obviously the weekend for everyone to vote on it, and then a few days in next week, and then we'll close the poll some kind of like mid-time, mid next week sometime.
I think the only other thing to add, right, we are not intending to pull the separate God Wars rooms themselves for irons. We will be pulling the combat achievements. We will be pulling instances added with that. But the separate God Wars rooms we see as an integrity change, because Ironmen cannot play that content right now.
Yeah. And that's also okay. Like it's also one of the driving forces into why we would be happy with putting out a revised blog the same day that a poll would go live. I don't typically like doing it. I never did in the past, unless we were really confident. But other than that, there aren't really that many changes to make, other than obviously just essentially putting in text around the effect of why we'd be looking to do that change at an integrity level. And then the rest of it will pretty much stay as it is. There are a few minor tweaks here or there that we're going to make. We're going to look to, for example, the offhand that we have at the moment, we're going to look to add a very small fee to reclaim those items. And that's mostly just to cover the instances of what happens in like PvP death, for example, when it gets dropped, and actually associating a little bit of a cost to it, just so that it's not, you know, an item that you'll just infinitely stack up for nothing. But apart from that, not much else changes really.
Yeah, I hate to always play the integrity card, but for what it's worth, it's the same way we did the corp change originally as well. So we are staying consistent with that.
Yep. Okay, I didn't get a chance to really read chat because I was kind of zoning out, but I'm going to go back through and figure out. But I guess if I peek over, smiley face if good, sad face if bad, and I'm just gonna see what kind of faces we get in the chat. Let us know.
Actually, you know, a quick question just came up, and I know it's always popular, so I just want to take it. Duel Arena, what about dressing a Duel Arena? We are looking at that. We have been discussing it. We want to take it. It's just finding the time for us to sync up on it and start to explore exactly what we're going to do. We've talked about a few different things, like be it bet caps, be it limiting how often you can even go there, or simply do something more drastic. So that is being discussed. We are looking to try and get something out at some point this year, ideally. But you know, time's tight before Christmas at this point.
Perfect. Thank you for that. All right, let's get into some more of the questions. Again, for those of you that don't know, this stream's primarily focused on combat achievements. So if you have any questions at Old School RS in the chat, please. Flying Vulpix has asked, why are we locking a Jad reskin behind Inferno and the Jad Challange? Why isn't it just locked behind the Jad Challange?
So this is more of a semantics thing, but it's technically like the Jad Challange is locked behind Inferno, like to complete all of it, and then the Jad reskin is locked behind completing the entire challenge. And this is because we don't want it so people could theoretically go into the triple Jad Challenge or 4 Jad Challenge, for example, and just practice over and over and over again, because that's like free practice for Inferno. So it maintains a bit of the integrity for Inferno as a whole. Like maybe that's not necessary, but we feel like that does help a bit.
I think it's important. I mean, we've always restricted Inferno from, you know, tournament worlds and stuff like that. I know obviously you can do it within the league now, but that's a little bit different because you're actually at least having to try it, even if it is with some crazy relics. But I think maybe a lot of people just didn't realize with the Jad Challenge that it starts off as 1 Jad, you know, one of the Inferno based Jads, and then the next wave is 2, then 3, which is as it would be in the Inferno. So there are actually 6 waves in total that you go through. It's not just a case of jumping in and defeat 6 at once and then you're done. So yeah, it would just give a little bit of extra practice room, really.
For what it's worth, I'm pretty sure the people who can probably beat 6 Jads at once are probably the same people who've beaten Inferno. So it's probably semantics.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a very minor thing, but that's the reason regardless. If you guys disagree, then fair enough.
Yeah, I mean, again, as Arcane says, if you disagree, just let us know. So, Administration Admin asked, will you have achievements for killing bosses unarmed? I've always thought it would be the Fremennik way to kill Vorkath by bashing its skull in with my fists, and I'd love to get achievement for something like that.
It's definitely a possibility. I'm not against it in the slightest. I'd probably want to playtest that a bit and maybe do the numbers. Like, if it takes you on average 30 minutes to punch Vorkath to death, maybe that's just not fun. Who knows? But maybe it's fine. Maybe it's an interesting challenge because like resource management and stuff. So I don't want to confirm it, but it's a definite big maybe.
Sounds like there's room for a new reward here. I'm thinking some nice knuckle dusters.
Don't get me wrong, it's fun to have some stupid challenges, but yeah, we gotta make sure that we gotta make sure they're fair and reasonable to complete and not RNG dependent, heavily so at least.
Sure. So, talking about tasks and achievements and stuff, do we know how many achievements there are likely to be, or is this yet to be decided?
It's yet to be decided, but if we had a rough estimate of, say, 3 to 4 tasks per boss, but there's most likely going to be more than that, then we're already at like 150 tasks, right? So you can see it upwards of 150 to 300 maybe, depending on how many interesting ones we can think of per monster.
Cool. Lots and lots for people to be doing then and getting themselves up to speed with. What would you say some of the hardest achievements that will feature with this update are?
Difficulty is a very subjective thing. Like Inferno is going to be on there. Obviously, the Grandmaster is going to be speed tasks and things like that. We can have some very like click-intensive tasks. We can have things like Husky suggested a really interesting one, which could be like kill the Great Olm without him ever doing the special attack. That's actually quite difficult. You have to do 1 to 0 the entire fight, effectively. But the task list hasn't been created yet, so it's really hard to say what's going to be the hardest one.
Okay, we'll just have to wait and see. Maybe you guys can suggest some challenges to us. Like, what do you think would be the hardest kind of like task or achievement? And who knows? Maybe it will get added into the game when.
I think the way we're thinking about difficulty is like to try and set expectations is not to be like only 5 people are going to complete Grandmaster. It's like it's not extreme. It's just going to be you're better than just being the Inferno. It'll be a step up from that. And like as Arcane mentioned, like there'll be speed tasks for Inferno, so it's already raising the bar. So it's intended to be hard. It's just not intended to be 4 people capable.
Where I'd like it to be is where Inferno is to people that have never done Inferno. It's this like far off dream that seems feasible but very, very challenging, right? I want it to be what that is to people that have already done Inferno to complete the entire tier, where it feels feasible and it's a good challenge and it's a grind and stuff like that, but it doesn't feel like completely impossible or unreasonable.
I think a lot of people will be happy with the way that you described, like the way you want it to be as well. Okay, I've seen a lot of the higher level PVM community really excited to have something else to look forward to now, especially with not as much in the sense of like new raids and bosses and stuff like that recently. So cool, thank you for that. This question's not related to combat achievements, but I will ask it anyway, even though my answer is very very lame. When is the next Gielinor Gazette coming? The answer is soon. Honestly, there was meant to be a Gielinor Gazette going out last week, but there's been some last minute changes that we just need to basically go through and get all sign off and stuff. So hopefully we'll be able to get it out to you next week. But yeah, that's currently in the works at the moment. So just have to wait a little bit longer. And apologies that you haven't had it yet. But there's a lot of interesting stuff that's going to be mentioned anyway. That's why it's taking a little while. So just be patient, and you will get some more info. Question number 8. I don't know why I said number 8, but it is question number 8. If those of you at home were wondering, will Pures be able to complete all, if not most, of the content available with combat achievements, or will it be impossible to do?
So there's no like arbitrary requirements, right? We've posted this on Twitter a few times. Not everyone might have seen it, of course. There's no like arbitrary requirements where you have to have 30 defense to complete this task or 40 defense to require this task. There's going to be some that require certain items, but we're going to be quite creative or liberal with the tasks, and it might be like, oh, complete it with this set of gear or this set of gear. So hopefully not completely limit Pures of basically completing all the tasks. That's not to say you'll be able to complete the entire diary though, since for example, Vorkath has got a lot of requirements behind it. So if you can't do Vorkath or kill Vorkath, then you're probably not going to be able to complete the entire diary. But that's not to say you wouldn't be able to complete up to, say, hard, which is currently where we're going to aim to make most people with like limited accounts be able to achieve.
Yeah, we did add that into the most recent blog, so you haven't checked it out already. There is a section that kind of goes into that detail. But yeah, as Arcane said, at the moment, we're looking to make sure that at least up to and including hard tier would be completable by anyone with like a limited account build, especially low defense. It's just then really down to your own ability, but there is a limit to how far we can go with it, because as you said, there are bosses that have requirements that we won't be changing to accommodate those type of accounts, just because it just wouldn't be feasible for us to do so.
Same way there's certain achievement diaries though.
Yeah, It's just like, I think we're in a good position with this one where we obviously have the opportunity to be able to accommodate as many players as possible without actually changing anything in terms of what we're trying to achieve or what combat achievements are meant to be. It's just a case of, there are some bosses that you just can't kill, so you just won't be able to complete that tier, unfortunately. And the only way we can get around that is by not really including them, and that kind of goes against what combat achievements really is. So yeah, it's one of those, I think, that will become a little bit more apparent when the tasks are actually listed and you can see them. But that's our plan for now. So yeah, let us know what you think about it. Another question is, will there be something similar skilling? I guess it's meant to say, will there be something similar for skilling? In the sense of like skilling achievements as opposed to combat achievements.
There's nothing planned. I could imagine it though. Like, spend an hour 3-ticking chins, master tier there. Don't drop a single tick.
Get X number of chins in 1 hour. Like, there's some you could pull out, but I think it's quite hard to design a skilling achievement set when actually the achievement diaries are mostly. Obviously, it's not just skilling, and it includes combat even, but in reality, it is that to some degree. Most of the achievement diaries are limited by your skilling because you need to get like 91 smithing to do X, Y, or Z.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I also think it will be really hard. I'd be really interested though if anyone has actually thought about this on the community and was like, you know what, this is something that could work. Like, sure, I'd be like more than happy to explore it as a possibility for something in the future, but I can't see a way that we can make it work and it still be something that would be fun to do, really. Okay, so a question here, it's a pretty big one. How would you feel about making this a more dynamic task list rather than another achievement diary? So instead of having a set number of 50 tasks in each tier, why not have the option of rolling a task for a given tier the player selects?
So it'd be like Slayer, but for specific ways to kill the boss instead.
Yeah, and I imagine that with this there'd have to be a certain kind of like threshold of tasks that you would have to complete that have been enrolled to you in order to be able to complete the tier, as opposed to just doing them all.
From a developer, that sounds like a complete nightmare to balance. It's completely random and dynamic. It'd be awful. I don't know, I think it'd be very hard to try and sell a system where it's like, oh, you are really good because you complete all these tasks, and people understand that you've completed all tasks by seeing you having, say, the Slayer helmets and the other rewards, etc. But if you had a dynamic system, then they have no idea what you've completed. It could be anything. You could have just RNG'd your way out of really hard tasks.
I think at that point, if we were going to consider it, it probably would be a better idea to use the same system that Leagues uses at the moment with like points, and then maybe having it that you have a certain amount of points to get to the next tier. But even then, like, you get to then pick and choose the easiest ones available, and that's just what would happen, and kind of takes away what, again, combat achievements is meant to be about, that prestige of showing off your achievements and how much you've been able to do compared to others. All right. Well, we kind of covered this already, but maybe we can just briefly go over it again because we have a considerable amount more in the chat now than we did before because of the in-game broadcast. How are you going to prevent crashing if this passes, considering the areas for achievements are going to be very busy if it does pass? So yeah, I guess I'll just quickly recap on what we discussed at the start of the stream. This is specific to God Wars Dungeon. It's been a pretty contentious topic regarding the private instances coming from this and such. So essentially what we are looking to do, and we'll have a revised blog out tomorrow, is make an integrity change so that essentially Ironmen would be given their own boss chamber rooms for the God Wars Dungeon areas, as opposed to being mixed in with mains. Basically, very similar to what happened with the Corporeal Beast's lair. You'd be able to go into a room, there may well be someone else in that room, but you'd only ever see other Iron Men. You wouldn't be competing against mains. And then we would still keep the current proposal with combat achievements that gives you access to a private instance upon completion of the hard tier and above, and then the cost reduces as you go through those tiers. So yeah, that's the consideration at the moment for God Wars Dungeon, in order to obviously help address issues of people crashing and the extra volume of players, because I mean that ultimately will become a problem on release. You know, people are going to be so excited and eager to kind of complete them that we expect it. You know, there will be inevitably an increase of players that are doing those bosses, and there may be some overcrowding issues. But I think for the most part, apart from God Wars Dungeon, there are already solutions in place to solve that. Yeah, I don't know if you guys wanted to add anything more to that.
And the only thing I say is, like, it's fairly common that obviously when you first launch content that things get overcrowded. It's normal. There's not much we're able to do really in the meantime for those first week or two.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, after that, as long as it gets down to normal levels again, we'll be happy. It'll be something we pay attention to, certainly, but really we're quite limited in what we can do at launch. But what I'm interested in is after a week, like, or two, you know, after a month when the content's back to normal, how many people are engaging with these bosses compared to pre-combat achievements. That's something I'm interested in. Sorry, I've been...
No, it's fine, sorry. What I wanted to say as well is that the diaries are going to touch every boss. So it's not like, unless for some reason I've misunderstood our community and everyone's going to get this diary and immediately just go to Bandos and everyone's going to just sit at Bandos. I don't think that's going to happen. I think people are going to disperse somewhat and like go to what their favorite bosses are first, and it'll be quite varied. Like every boss will get increased activity, but it's not like any individual boss is just everyone goes there immediately. There's no go-to boss for the diary or anything like that. Every boss is going to have tasks.
Why is I know this is just going to make it even worse, but why is the chat constantly spamming about raids 3? You guys want raids 3? I think it's time for our core
topic on raids 3, Kieran. You want to touch it again?
I think they're saying they don't want raids 3, right?
Well, I guess we just won't do it. Next person say raids 3.
Yeah, exactly.
It gets, you know, we'll time you out, I guess. Sorry, folks.
It's the blacklist.
All right, can we just address it just like quickly though? No, don't start saying raids 4, 5, 6. Any raid number, get out of here.
Just look, we'll do it like Windows, right? We'll go up to raids 8 and then just say 9's not happening. Here's raids 10.
Brilliant. On a serious note though, just because I don't want to have to deal with you guys spamming it anymore. Raids 3, is there anything that we can talk about Raids 3? Maybe.
Obviously,
it might happen.
At some point, we would love to do another Raids dungeon. I mean, it shouldn't be a surprise that I can say today that in the future we will do Raids 3, right? At some point it will happen. What I can't say is when or what our plans are really. We've obviously talked about it. We all love this stuff as well. We loved creating Raids 1, we loved creating Raids 2. You know me, I love creating PVM content, and of course we've talked about it. We've had different ideas going around. We've seen you all talk about wanting desert raids or whatever else. I also love the idea of a jungle raid. There's so many cool things you could do. I mean, Karamja's so lacking. So is the desert. There's so much potential for the future. Yeah, I mean, of course we've discussed ideas. Nothing's confirmed, but in the future we'd love to do it. There's no timelines because today it's not right coming up. We'll talk about it, sure, at some point. That's all we can say.
Perfect. Thank you for that. So yeah, it will happen eventually at some point. Just
soon TM.
Yeah, soon TM.
It's not like we're working on it now. That's what I'll end with. We're not working on it like now.
I was going to say, if you are, then well, when the hell did that happen? Because I had no idea. All right, moving on. ShadowSam544 asks, I know that Death NPC don't talk with UIMs, but does UIM have access to Death's coffer? And if not, can we? So we could buy instance with the coffer if poll pass.
Yeah, I think the reason you don't have access to Death's coffer right now is because there's no reasons for you to have access to Death's coffer right now. Like currently, Ultimate Ironmen have no use for that storage of money. So there's no point in letting you dump items in there. After the update, assuming it passes, you will have a reason for it, so we can lift that restriction.
Cool. It's probably something I will, well, not probably, it will be something that I'll also clarify in the updated blog that we'll put out tomorrow, just so that it's written down to say that that's what would happen if it was to pass. Okay, interesting one here actually. Do you feel like melee achievements overshadow the other combat styles with this piece of content?
Is he saying melee's better than range and mage?
Maybe it's more of a, with the tasks that we have, are they going to be more melee focused, or will there be like a healthy balance between the 3 combat styles?
I don't know. I think it's generally easier to come up with like a ranged achievements because you have more to work with, right? Movement's a bigger factor. But I don't really feel any bias towards melee personally, and I'm probably going to be making most of the tasks, so probably not.
Cool. Okay, I guess let's flip that then in case we got it wrong and they were referring to something like the rewards, because obviously we know that there's a accuracy based offhand. And do we feel that the rewards maybe might be overshadowing the other combat styles, considering they'll be used throughout? All 3 of them will probably be used throughout the whole of combat achievements.
The offhand is definitely a melee offhand, and that was kind of the intent. It wasn't really about creating one for each style. Like, it's very hard to release a melee offhand at this stage that wouldn't be like very powerful or dividing arcane. And we've had that topic brought up before, right? We want it to come from some really good content that could possibly be attached to arcane as to not devalue it. And for ranged offhands are very unpopular, so I just don't think even if it was a bunch of accuracy, it would have to just completely be better than Buckler to even be worth it. The melee accuracy at least had a slot because you can sacrifice the strength for the accuracy. Ranged and mage currently doesn't have that equivalent right now. That's why it wasn't really considered.
Cool, that's fair. Thanks for that. Son of Tigers has asked, are these achievements auto-completed based on current kill counts and personal bests? Say for someone with 250 Chambers of Xeric kills, would they need to do another 200? I said 220, but it says 250. But would they need to do another? I think someone didn't.
KC tasks, all KC tasks will be done retroactively. So if you already have the KC, you'll get auto-completed. Most personal bests ones will be done retroactively, but some bosses are going to have their own tiers added for group sizes. So for example, Nightmare and Theory of Blood, like currently there's just one variable to track your personal best, so we'd want to separate them, and because we're doing it post-release, we have no way to prove what group size you were originally when you had the tiers, so you're going to have to get those personal bests again.
Cool, thank you for that. Okay, are there any other ideas around combining boss heads with other weapons, like what you've suggested?
I really want a Dragon Hunter Lance one. I saw that GIF on Reddit a couple of months ago, like the red and black Dragon Hunter Lance, and it just looks so good. I want it so bad.
They do look really cool. I think that was the only one, wasn't it, when we were going through the different potential, especially when it comes to like using boss heads, for example. The Lance was the only real one. In terms of other general recolors that have been brought up and that we've also discussed, that we would love to be able to potentially offer in the future, are different variants of the blowpipe based on the the mutagens that you get, and also a variation of the Void Knight armor set. Maybe having like a corrupted style look, not changing the stats, just purely cosmetic, but some kind of like red and black variant instead. Those two were very popular, and as I say, something that we would love to be able to look at as well. Just unfortunately not part of the blog that's out at the moment. So yeah, the Tanzanite blowpipe hog, respect on it.
Enter
knows
the
exactly
bone.
what we're talking about. Enter the bone.
Never forget.
Moving on. I'm going to get through some chat questions because that was basically a lot of the questions that we had pre-prepared coming into this stream. Master Lurker 69 has asked here, how is the Shades minigame rework coming along? So these are, some of them are combat achievements, some of them are not. This one's clearly not. I'm not sure actually if any of us here can actually provide an update on that. Maybe you can, Kieran.
I'm not up to date enough to comment really. Yeah. I know it's been looked at. Arcane, do you know?
I have no idea.
Yeah, I did attend. It's fine. I'll go then. I did attend a review session for a lot of the work that the different devs have been doing in various departments and stuff. Teams, sorry, not departments. We're all old school. And I can say that the rework is looking amazing. I don't know in terms of its exact release date yet, but like the area itself looks incredible. Yeah. The artists have done a fantastic job putting that together. That's about all that I really saw without kind of like, I don't want to spoil too many things, but it does look really, really good. It looks so much better than the older one did. That's for sure. Very old school as well. So I think you're really happy. It's very fitting to kind of like the area that it's in general, as opposed to before. But unfortunately, can't give you a date as to when it will be out just yet. The Seeker113 from chat has said, super excited for the combat achievements updates to come out. As someone who plays old school RuneScape solo, how likely would it be to complete the higher tiers of the achievements alone?
Very likely. The majority are going to be balanced around solo play, but if you're going to expect to do all the Theatre of Blood ones solo, you're probably going to have a bit of an issue. So you're probably going to want to group up for some things, but very few. I'd recommend joining a clan if you wanted to get through those tasks.
Yeah, I think we did state that the only times that it would not be solo is where we just have to put exceptions in place because content's typically designed around group play. But yeah, for the most part, should be fine, which is pretty cool. Did you want to say something, Kieran? It looked like you were about to. No, okay. Just nodding away. I just keep staring into your eyes. Literally.
I know you can't help it. I understand.
All right. The one Garen has said, "Are we going to be getting any larger quests anytime soon?" Okay. Maybe. There is actually, you know what? Yeah, you probably will. There's I'm not going to tell you anything about it other than to say that one of the projects that I'll be working on before the end of this year will be for a new quest that we'll be able to bring out to you in blog and poll format, obviously. But yeah, there is one quest, although admittedly I haven't really gone through everything in regards to it yet because there's one project I'll be doing just before that, which is the fishing skill boss, looking to basically bring that back to you in its newly designed format. So I don't know how big the quest is, but it sounds really cool. So really cool.
It's not like what you'd consider like a super large quest, like your Dragon Slayer 2, that sort of thing. This quest isn't, at least. So if you check how many quests are in game, that gives you some cool ideas about the future.
Ooh, Kieran. Okay, all right, here we go. Interesting one. I think we kind of cover this in the blog, but it's good to go through on stream. Will new content be added to the combat achievements that will be required to continue to have the rewards, or will the list of challenges be set in stone once it is released? So I guess the question is, will we add new tasks to combat achievements when new content comes out? Will you have to do them to be able to get the rewards, or are we just doing what it is on release and leaving it at that?
If new content comes out that is of the caliber that should be added to the diary, then it will be added. So if we introduce a new raid or a new group boss or a new Slayer boss, any sort of solo boss like that, it will be added and you'll have some of your rewards taken off of you. And you'll have to complete the appropriate tiers to get those tiers of rewards back.
I think that's the right way to do it. We talked about it earlier as well, about how are we actually going to tackle this, because I think 5 years down the line, whenever several bosses have been added to the game, it'd be really weird if those bosses just didn't have challenges and achievements on them. I think it's good to do. The one thing we can't take away from you is the XP you've earned, so you're getting that one if you do it now.
And those cheeky little XP lamps. Yeah, I think you're right, though. It would just be weird, wouldn't it, if you were to have this combat achievement system and then, 2 years worth of content updates past it and none of it be included. I kind of see it similar to how Quest Cape and the music cape and stuff like that works, albeit very different because obviously achievement diaries are very much set in stone, and I don't think we've ever added anything new to those, have we? That removes your previous, access to the rewards. Yeah, and we added
one
a
of
new
those things
for itself.
New diaries, yeah, but we've never taken the rewards away. And in hindsight, it's one of those things you could look back at it and say, maybe we should have set this up so that we could add new tasks, because obviously it's the same as what I just said about bosses, right? We add new content. It's probably fair that we think about that as it probably does warrant an achievement diary task, but yeah, it's something that's locked in now. It's not something we'd look to go back on. I think also, as much as they have rewards that are useful, everyone does diaries for the XP, and we can't take that away from them. So
I don't know, man. I like some of the rewards from those diaries that are very, very beneficial from a quality of life perspective. But yeah, you're right. The extra bit of XP is always a good little boost. This isn't something that anyone has mentioned up yet, but just I'm going to say it anyway because we did add it into the blog. And whilst we're on the topic of achievement diaries, just so that everyone's aware, combat achievements and achievement diaries are in no way, shape, or form related. So you don't have to do combat achievements to be able to complete achievement diaries. Achievement diaries will stay entirely independent from combat achievements. You'll still get all of the, you wouldn't have to basically go back and get it. Same with obviously that means for the achievement diary cape, you wouldn't lose that. As long as you've done your diaries, you've done it. This is a separate update. No way, shape, or form will it interact with it in that sense. Biffo89 has asked, will a level 3 fire cape be a combat achievement?
No.
I mean, it is a combat achievement, but it won't be in combat achievements.
I mean, everyone who is level 4 all of a sudden can't do the diary.
Restart my account from scratch.
Can you imagine? It's like,
yeah,
I'm never going to be able to do this then. Don't think that would be very good. What if, hold on though, what if we could put them into like an instance version where we set them to level 3 and you have to do it at level 3?
We could do that. Yeah.
Okay. Maybe we could just have some like for fun achievements that we do that you don't have to do them to be able to complete the tier, but they're just there to like show off that you've actually done it in game. I don't know.
Fun tier.
Yeah, exactly. The for fun or the extremely insane tier. Okay, well that's another one. Bragalaga says, have you considered making the combat achievements reward an alternate look for the normal achievements diary set?
I think it speaks to what you were just talking about, really. Like, the two systems, as much as they share the word achievement, are really quite separate. In hindsight, maybe we should have called it like combat challenges and went with a different name. Because, yeah, I can see the confusion. I also think it does add levels of like complexity to the game. Like there's two separate achievement systems. There's all these different things. But yeah, I mean, maybe that's something to look at down the line. But
I think
it's not gonna affect the achievement diary set right now. To be honest, I don't see that as necessarily an unreasonable thing to consider down the line. But yeah, I think it adds a link that doesn't exist right now.
Cool. I think we should change it to combat-based achievements, just purely because the abbreviation would just be great, and that's how some people probably would feel about having to go through to the Grandmaster tier at CBA.
What are you up to tonight? CBA.
Yeah. Oh, what? Okay. All right, let's ship it.
I love stuff like that. You know the stash units. Like stash is an acronym. Store things and stuff here. That was the idea of it. That's what I called it originally.
You know, actually,
I don't know if that's ever said anywhere in game, but that's what it stands for.
Yeah, I did wonder why the full stops are there. And I was just kind of like, wow, they're really emphasizing the fact it's a stash unit. But now I know. Cool. You learn something new every day. Damn, Karen, you're such a world builder. You just told us some unknown lore.
I'm pretty sure it was in the original blogs when we first did it, but I'm not sure we made it into game.
It was a while back now, though. Okay. Ooh, this is... I guess I'll ask this one, although I think we've kind of covered it, but there might be some parts that we can pick out of it that we haven't. Ruby has said, it seems there might be a bit of overlap between combat achievements and achievement diaries. Would it be possible to integrate the combat achievements into the... I don't know what DA is meant to be. diary achievements.
Diaries spelt wrong.
Yeah, the wrong way around. Okay, and split it up into separate questing, skilling, combat sections, and keep it all in the same place in a more streamlined, beginner-friendly achievements tab.
Well, that's not what we're going to do when we do combat achievements, but this is sort of closer to what I was referring to in terms of handling achievements better. Now, that's not to include combat achievements as requirements for achievement diaries or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
What really we're talking about is a way to present this stuff to the player better. And what's filters to give you different rewards can remain. And yeah, but that's the sort of thing we're thinking about. Also, technical behind-the-scenes implementation of achievements being one sort of central achievement set that we then look at these 10 achievements for this diary, these 10 achievements for this diary, and it's just centralized in a nice way. There's a bunch of things to potentially look at. What I don't want long-term is to confuse players about what achievements are. It's like, I click this button to get to this achievement list. I click this button to get to this achievement list. I mean, I know me and probably many others have spent leagues looking at their leagues list and then checking their diaries. Like, I've got this seed. Which one do I need to plant it in to make sure I tick the right tasks? Like, you have to refer to 2 lists. Now, combat achievements and achievement diaries probably have a little less overlap, but I do care. That's what I care about, making sure we can not run into those sort of problems.
Cool. That sounds fair. Icy Crits has said, how are you going to future-proof this update to include new hard PVM content, such as Raids 3, eventually?
That is very, who said we were going to do Raids 3 one day? How did they know? I think we've already talked about this, right?
With like a new content will come out, we will have new tasks.
Yeah. There is a section in the blog, though, that maybe we could... hold on, let me bring it up so I can kind of like pull through from the details.
We could elaborate on that, yeah.
Yeah. So we did mention in the blog, it's very near the bottom, just before the 6 Jad Challenge gets introduced. But if you want to take it away, Arcane, I know it's basically your words anyway.
Yeah, so the idea is when, say, a new raid or a group boss or Slayer boss comes out, the tasks won't be, like the additional combat achievement tasks, won't be released at the same time as the boss. This is to avoid 2 things, mainly. 1, the boss is really buggy, and the tasks just get either completed too easily, or they're uncompletable, etc. Or the balancing issues where, say, that the boss is too easy and then we buff it later, or it's too hard and then we nerf it later. We want everyone to be on like an even playing field when everyone first gets access to those tasks. So there'll be like a grace period. There isn't really going to be a specific like timeline of it, or week, a month, whatever. But after the boss is settled, so after all the post-release changes have happened, we fixed all the bugs, we rebalanced it, if any rebalancing has happened, then all the tasks will come out for that piece of content, and then you'll have to go through them all, complete the boss, and then get all your tiers and rewards back.
Cool. Thank you for elaborating on that. Well, I was just going to ask something, actually. Now I can't remember what it was, so that was really good. Never mind, it will come back to me. I'll ask you again in a second, Arcane. Too Much Cash says, are wilderness bosses included in the diary? Sorry, Spear, I jumped ahead on a few questions because it was not as relevant.
Yep, wilderness bosses will be in the diary. How much they're in the diary is up to debate. I'm not going to force everyone to do 1,000 of every wilderness boss KC or anything ridiculous like that and make you spend your summer just killing wilderness bosses over and over again. But they will be in there to some degree.
Perfect. Next one. This one is completely unrelated to combat achievements, but I do want to ask it just because I saw it and thought it was cool. So I've answered it already. But Smithsonian OSRS says, did any of you see the community ice giant boss proposal? And if so, what were your thoughts? I should have really sent in this image of the proposal to bring it up.
I wish I knew which, because that's the thing. I've seen so many different fire giant boss and ice giant boss proposals. But yeah, I don't know.
That's my bad. I'm a bad host. I'm really sorry. I'll share it around to you anyway, Kieran.
Don't worry.
I guess just as a general idea. Yeah, as a general idea, what are your thoughts regarding expanding those little boss lines? We've got Briar Fighter, I think was the last one, right?
So, to be honest, when I look back at Moss Giant boss, Briar Fighter, and the Hill Giant boss, Obor, I think we made a few mistakes with them. I'm not suggesting they're not great ideas and potentials of content. I think they're free-to-play bosses, but they're goddamn too hard for free-to-play. It's not to say they can't be beaten. It's just that I think that actually got placed wrong. In that, like, the idea is great on paper, right? Let's give free-to-play a solid, like, decent moneymaker. But I think it's just too brutal. It's too difficult to get the keys. And obviously, the key drop rates are pretty high as well, so you don't get a chance very often. And then it's a boss that actually... I mean, you think of free-to-play, you think what levels you have in free-to-play. You're not talking people in free-to-play are walking around level 80s. By then, you're getting membership. That's long gone by that point. So I think we went a bit too hard with them. Now, also, not many people kill them because of obviously how rare the keys are as well. So not many people even get a key because you're talking 1 in 128, I think, on Hill Giants. It's actually quite a lot of Hill Giants, especially on free-to-play when you're ranging them behind a rock or you're hitting them with like a myth semi. You think of the sort of people who kill Hill Giants, and then you've got a boss that's positioned much later, and you really need the pretty much best in slot free-to-play gear to have a chance at it. While members obviously just walk in with any of the much easier pieces of gear, much better pieces of gear, and just destroy it in seconds. So, I mean, I did Briar Fight on Leagues, it was dead in 20 seconds, not even that. So,
to be fair, Leagues was the first time I've ever fought Briar Fighter as well.
Yeah.
It was the same thing. I was like, I prepped for like full inventory just in case. I was like, oh, you never know. I went in and literally just spec'd it and it was dead.
Yeah, so I think the concept's super cool, and I think we did make some mistakes with them. Hence why I think we absolutely should probably look at a Fire Giant and Ice Giant boss one day, because I think it's just cool content.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we want to refine how we approach them and get them right. And I wouldn't even be opposed to making changes to Obor and Briar Fighter and look back at them and think, how can we give them a stronger use and make it a bit better for like free-to-play players who are looking to maybe get money for a bond and things like that. Because that would be cool. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, I think it would be. It could be nice if we could maybe like offer a new boss and at the same time look to revisit the old ones as well and make changes at the same time. Okay, I'm conscious of the time here, but there are 2 questions that I would really like to cover that came through from chat, if possible. The first one of those is from Brooke Grin, who has said, comparatively, how did you judge how hard to make the elite/master tasks, not just the grandmaster tasks?
Yeah, I mean, the tasks haven't really been all created yet, but we have a rough player profile for each tier that we think would be kind of suitable at what kind of player should be expecting to complete this content. And I thought it was fairly clear myself, because I played the game quite a lot, and I progressed through the tiers, not the tiers, but the levels of like playstyle, like gear, like experience, etc. And I've kind of experienced that, and I feel like you can sort of map that down. And I tried to communicate that through the blog, with like sort of like gear expectations, stat expectations, like how much of a certain piece of content should you have really done before you feel like you should be expecting to complete that entire tier. So if that wasn't overly clear, hopefully I can elaborate more, but I did try to break it down into some sort of player profile effectively.
Cool. And then the last one that I want to cover is from Fuzzy Waffles. We should throw those out. Is the intent for the accuracy weapon to be better than defenders?
It is better than defenders in accuracy, but not in raw DPS. It doesn't have any strength on it at all. So against things with like low or even moderate defense, the strength is a much bigger asset than the accuracy. So the defenders maintain their position as the best DPS offhand in the game. But for things with very high defense, right now that's quite limited. So Tecton comes to mind, especially like CM Tecton, if you're not hitting any Warhammers especially. Sota's Eggs have got really high defense as well, especially pre-hammer. So for bosses like that, it does have quite a good position where the accuracy is much more beneficial. Outside of that, you've got it for special attacks. So say you do want to just equip it while you use your Dragon Warhammer as a special attack, or an Arc Clay, a Corp or something like that. It'd be well worth using.
Cool. All right. There are so many more questions that chat have asked that I'm going to basically take offline and see if there's any of them that I can answer in the blog if they're not already. Was there anything else either yourself, Arcane, or Kieran wanted to cover in this stream before I wrap things up?
We're good.
No? Okay. Yeah. I'll just reiterate once more then in terms of what the plan is at the moment. We are essentially looking to release the like a new revised blog tomorrow. We still do think that we're confident enough to go in with actually polling the content tomorrow as well. So we'll try and get a blog out relatively early. There are very minor changes in there. We just want to make some clarifications based on some of the things that came back from the community. But the biggest thing that we are looking at the moment is making an integrity change that would essentially allow Ironmen to have access to their own boss chambers within God War's dungeon. So that would be very similar to what happened with Corp. You could go into a boss chamber room like Grador, for example, and it may well be that there's another player in there, but it would be another Ironman. So you would only be competing against Ironmen. You would not be competing against normal players. And then we would still keep the current proposal that we have within the blog, that is that if you've completed the hard achievement diary and above, you would have access to a private instance for a cost. And hopefully that's a good solution that kind of pleases as many people as possible. That kind of eliminates the issues regarding hardcore Ironmen and ultimate Ironmen not necessarily having access to the instances because they'll need to defeat wilderness bosses to get hard. It also kind of helps with the issues people had regarding as you're a learner and you're getting less kills per trip, the instance cost is relatively expensive, albeit offset by your drops. Completely understand that point. You'd then be able to look to go into the normal rooms that Ironmen have access to and you know, spend the time to find a free room that you can practice in. And then obviously also solves the problem where overcrowding in general for not just Ironmen but for mains will be solved with the added luxury of an instance that you can pay for just uninterrupted decimation of the God War's dungeon bosses. So that's that. Last quick run through the announcements. ! Leagues, obviously it's still live, it's not too late to start your journey, so ! Leagues for a little bit more info. If you haven't already, I would really recommend playing, even if it's only just for a few days, just to get just to experience it, because it is like nothing else. Super fun. I'm extremely addicted. Very good fun. Thank you to everyone that made that, because it was before I joined. ! CA. Obviously, we've been talking about combat achievements today throughout the stream and throughout the last few days through various different social media platforms. That will give you a link to the blog. So please give it a read. Make sure you're up to speed with all of the changes that have been put in over the last few days. ! CA for a link to that. ! Twisted will give you information in regards to the first part in the Twisted Tales series, Getting Ahead, which is the new quest that went live yesterday. So if you want to help out Gordon and Mary with the issue of their livestock disappearing in the Kebos lowlands, that is the place for you to go. And then finally, ! Merch. Obviously Black Friday is just around the corner, but that doesn't mean you can't start early. So treat yourself by using ! Merch, and if you spend over £30 or $50 in the store, you'll receive a free black variant of the AGS while stocks last. Cool. That was it from me. Thank you both Arcane and Kieran for helping me out here. Thank you obviously Spear for helping with the production and doing an amazing job as always, and Modcast for being an absolute beast and putting the questions together and taking all of those questions from you in chat. And finally, thank you to everyone in chat for sticking around and for being awesome. Much appreciated.
Thanks to you for hosting it. It's been great.
You're welcome.